Hello class, welcome to Move by Move. This is Coach Jack. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Today's lesson, we're going to go over Paul Morphy versus the Duke and the Count, a game that was played in 1858 in Paris, France. The game is considered to be a brilliant fashion game that was played over the board at a opera house, considered the opera game house. So in the game, Paul Morphy played e4. The Duke and the Count responded with e5, striking in the center, which is the best symmetrical moves for white and black. Fischer and Morphy were in agreement when they said that e4 is best by test. That means that e4 is probably the best response for white. Paul Morphy developed this knight to f3, attacking the pawn, and Duke and the Count defended that pawn with d6, opening up with the Philidor defense. Very popular opening for black since they were in France, and immediately Paul Morphy opened up his center pawn with d4, the queen's pawn. This is immediately attacking this pawn here on e5. Duke and the Count, bishop to g4, it pins the knight to the queen, and Morphy responds with pawn captures on e5, so this right here, if black wants to recapture immediately, the queen will come and capture the queen, and then king would have to capture back, and then black will not be able to castle. It would lose its privileges to castle. So Duke and the Count capture the knight first, attacking the queen. Queen captures back, because I'm black, aiming at the f7 pawn, and not only now black can recapture. D takes e5. Immediately Paul Morphy plays bishop to c4, strikes to f7, creating a mating threat. The best defense here, knight to f6, blocking the queen's path to capture the pawn. Paul Morphy played queen b3, a battery diagonal against the f7, which causes another mate threat. If black doesn't defend the pawn other than with the king, the bishop will capture and create a mate threat on e7. So the queen comes out and protects it. Queen to e7. Queen to e7 protects the pawn. Of course, Paul Morphy could capture the pawn and then put in the threat to the rook, but that would just create a queen check, and then queens will be off the board since the bishop protects it. So Paul Morphy just simply develops knight to c3. Paul Morphy plays his opponents, Duke and the Count play c6, protecting the pawn, at preventing the queen to capture, and maybe going after the rook. And Morphy develops his bishop to g5, which pins the knight to the queen. Another pin attack here. Duke and the Count play b5. It attacks the bishop. This attack comes too early. If you notice on the back rank, black hasn't even developed this king side, or it's queen's, knight, and rook. Paul Morphy decides to give up his knight by capturing the pawn. Pawn captures back, and then bishop check with a check. And this is a tempo in chess. This is really good. He'd sacrifice a knight for 2 pawns and a check. If the knight blocks, he will lose his queen. If the king moves, he can't castle. So the knight has to come into knight b to d7 is played, pinning himself to the king. Now, notice how white has developed all his pieces. And now white could castle either on the king side or on the queen side. Morphy castles on the queen side, getting his king to safety and putting more pressure on that pin piece to the king. The Duke and the Count play rook to d8. Rook to d8 defends the knight. Now, I'm going to ask you, what move do you think Paul Morphy played here? Rook captures the knight, he takes away the knight. He's preparing a discovered check on the king. If the knight captures, of course, black is going to lose his queen by the bishop. So the only way is rook takes rook, and then there's another pin. In chess, we put pressure on the pin piece. The only piece that's not in the game that hasn't been developed for white is the rook on h1. So Morphy plays rook to d1, which puts pressure on this pin piece. In this moment, the Duke and the Count decide to play queen to e6, offering a trade of queens. But Paul Morphy is not in the trading business. So what he does, he captures the rook. Bishop captures d7 with check and forking the king, and the queen is being protected by this rook. Now, since the knight is free to move, the knight can capture the bishop. But here, pause the video. There's a forcing mate in 2 moves. See if you can spot it. Okay, if you found the move, you're absolutely thinking like Morphy, a prodigy of chess, learned how to play at the age of 6. Very good player. He took Europe by storm, beating every opposition and masters at that time. And the move that he played here, a brilliant double S clamp.
Check.
Queen to b8, check. Sacrificing the queen. The only way out of check here, guys, is to capture the queen. Upon capturing the queen, the rook slides
check
to d8, creating a checkmate with rook and bishop. There's nothing black can do. If you notice, the pawn structure for white is nice intact. The pawns look good. There's 3 pawns versus 1, 4 pawns versus 3. Okay, it looks like the king never got to safety. The bishop never got a chance to play in the game, and the rook stayed at home square. This is a beautiful game by Paul Morphy versus the Duke and the Count. Morphy delivers a checkmate with only 2 remaining pieces. He had to bring all of his pieces into the game. This game is a brilliant demonstration of optical opening play and coordination of forces in the attack. In just 17 moves, Morphy committed all of his pieces to the struggle and created a sacrificial masterpiece. Hope you enjoyed this game, and you will someday pass it on to another eager chess learner. My goal is for you to memorize this game by memory, move by move. It's only 17 moves that you must remember and recall. You could teach it to your friends, your mom, your dad, your brother, your uncle, your mom, your sister, even your grandkids one day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this game. And just to recap, I'm going to go ahead and play the game over in slow motion. There you go. The game from Paris, France, 1858. Paul Morphy versus the Duke and the Count. Paul Morphy, a brilliant chess player, American player from Louisiana, New Orleans. A great American chess player from New Orleans, Louisiana. Prodigy chess player, probably one of the best. Never world champion, but considered the prince of chess. Everyone have a good day and hope to see you in class next week. Until the next one. See you later.